All right, joining us today is a man of many signs, a guy who's so outspoken he brought his feelings to the ring, wrote them down on signs, and shared them with the world. But today he's actually speaking to us. You might remember him as Sign Guy Dudley and Lou E. Dangerously, but in real life, he is Lou D'Angeli. Lou, thanks for joining us. How have you been?
I've been great. Your intro there is up there with an old school Joel Gertner intro. So yeah, I think you have a rivalry going there, maybe.
There we go. Yeah, I got to get the little rhyming down to it, but I'll try our best to give a little bit of an intro.
Some rhyming and some non-PG words too would probably work out well also for you with him. So
definitely got to get the whole feel going in here. So from what I remember, you started in the crowd holding some signs. You were chosen to work with the Dudleys. Can you take us back maybe to how it all began? Whose idea was it to bring you in as Sign Guy Dudley?
Yeah, it was super lucky, first of all. So let's just put it out there right now. It was a lot of luck. It was a lot of being in the right place at the right time. But it was also a lot of season and opportunity and running through a wall to keep it. I was a ringside photographer for ECW. I was a writer for the ECW Action Wire, which was the program that Gabe Sapolsky actually started for ECW. So him and I were like friends right away. He's the one who kind of gave me a break in the wrestling business to kind of let me even write for the program and then start doing photography. And I was still in college at the time that ECW got going. I just fell in love with it right away. And since it was based in Philadelphia, I lived in Philadelphia. It was just a natural for me to try to get there and try to do something more with it. So, I started writing for the program. I started shooting, photos and all that kind of stuff. And I had really long hair. And I had a beard, and it was the grunge era of the 90s, and that's what I looked like. And then the Dudleys came in, and I looked like one of the Dudleys. Specifically all of them, really. I mean, like the whole family. So it was Raven and a combination of Raven and Tommy Dreamer and Taz to a point as well that came up with the Dudley gimmick, but specifically the Sign Guy gimmick was Raven's doing as a way to kind of rib one of the guys in the crowd who was one of our diehard fans. And honestly, man, I thought it would last like 2 or 3 months, if that. I was just like, I was in it. I thought it was fun. It was a dream come true to be in the ring and be on TV and working with guys that I grew up watching and that kind of stuff. But man, it lasted a really long time. And it actually ended up being an anchor for my career. In that I found a lot of people go in the wrestling business and it's not stable. And I completely get that. I learned a lot of different sides of the business that helped me further my career outside of wrestling. So that's why I always call it an anchor, because it was like, it helped me get ground in the entertainment world, which is ultimately where I wanted to be.
Sure. Now, I've read that you mentioned that you worked with Tommy Dreamer and Taz training a little bit so that you didn't get killed out there. But did you ever want to train to be a wrestler, or was that managing side where you wanted to be, or, you just kind of fell into that and you liked where you were?
Yeah, I liked where I was because, I mean, to be real honest again, it's like, I was given a spot as Sign Guy Dudley. After a couple shows, I was getting thrown around without any training. I was just kind of learning it on the fly. And it was Tommy Dreamer who pulled me aside and said, I have to teach you how to work, or I have to teach you how to take bumps. I have to do something to help you. Will you come to the wrestling school, which was the House of Hardcore? I don't think it was quite billed yet, but that's what it was. I'm not sure. But anyway, it was the school that Taz ran with Mikey, and eventually Bubba was there and everything like that. So yeah, man, I started going there, but I learned how to do stuff that an old school manager would do in the 70s and 80s. And that was to get heat. And then also just had that part in the match where you interfere or you take a bump to pop the crowd because you're a heel or something like that. So he taught me to do all those things. I honestly never really wanted to be full-blown wrestler, just for a couple of reasons. First was I always liked the managers when I was growing up, Bobby Heenan, for instance, Paulie Dangerously, et cetera. And also the spot that I was given was like, it was moving in real time, and I didn't have years to train, so to catch up. And that was another factor as well.
Sure. Now, ECW was definitely a diamond in the rough that definitely shaped the world of pro wrestling. You got to see that unfold right before your eyes. Can you take us back maybe to what it was like backstage at that time, to where people started watching you guys more than they were watching WWE or WCW at that time?
It was pretty awesome to be part of that, man. I mean, honestly, when I was writing for the program and doing the photography stuff, we used to go out on the streets of Philadelphia and ask people to come watch the shows, so that we look like we had a full house for TV. So we'd give people free hot dogs and soda to do that. So we went from there to, the Barely Legal, which was celebrated, last week is 20 years ago that Barely Legal took place, which is insane to me. But being part of that, and when you really start catching on and when things really start happening and all of a sudden houses were going up, the word of mouth was so strong for us. And that was in an era where the internet really wasn't big at all. I mean, Prodigy was kind of it, maybe AOL, so it wasn't like it is today, but it was awesome. It was unbelievable. I mean, there's a comparison I give whenever I'm asked, but I really feel this way, that we were to wrestling what Nirvana was to music. We just changed the landscape completely. And none of us knew in that moment that was happening. And that's why when I look back now, man, I'm still blown away. I'm still blown away that we had that much influence on everybody. It's insane.
There was a lot of Dudleys too. There was Big Dick Dudley. There was you, Sign Guy, Bubba, Devon. Joel Gertner was part of the mix. I think there was even a Dances with Dudley. Was there any plans to just keep growing Dudleyville, or was it like, okay, guys, we got enough of Dudleys in there? I don't know. Was there any? I don't know.
Yeah, no. I think initially, there was Chubby Dudley. You said Dances with Dudley. There was Little Snot Dudley. I actually think you forgot Spike Dudley, but maybe I didn't say it. Yeah. He was a huge factor with the Dudley clan. No, initially it was strictly comedy, and there was a lot of different ideas. I don't remember all of them, but I do remember that it was going to eventually just keep growing and growing and growing. But then what happened was, Bubba and Devon just clicked. Bubba started getting over as a babyface at the time. Devon was a heel, and then once they start working together, you've seen what happened, in the last 20 years with those two guys. It's been unbelievable. So yeah, there were absolutely plans for different Dudleys and that kind of stuff. I think it all just kind of went away when the act became like a serious act and became a money drawing act and a real thing. So I was there the night that Bubba became Bubba. And the different ideas they had for him were all over the place. So I presume every idea they were pitching at Bubba to become Bubba eventually would have been a Dudley if we had kept going. So there was a lot.
Sure. Now, you went kind of from a little bit of a comedy, but the Dudleys would draw so much heat anywhere they went. One example I remember right here in our backyard at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York, the Dudleys pissed the crowd off so much that fans started charging the ring, which was stupid on their part because they got their asses handed to them. But, was it like that everywhere you guys went to? Because I know Bubba and Devon would just taunt the crowd and really piss them off. And, man, some of these fans just, I don't know, they didn't get it. They definitely didn't understand it. But was it like that everywhere, though, on the road, maybe just all the heat you guys were drawing at that time?
Yeah, it was, I don't even, Poughkeepsie was kind of tame compared to the other things we experienced, especially like in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, and in Queens was really bad. We had some hairy situations in a lot of different cities. Buffalo was really bad also, as I'm thinking, a bunch are coming to my mind. So it was a lot, but yeah, it was pretty harsh, man. It was, there were definitely times that, we got walked out of the building with security and that kind of, or me specifically, or Joel or something like that. I think Bubba and Devon and Big Dick can handle themselves. But I was asked a question recently if I was ever scared in the ring, and I wasn't, because I was in the ring with the toughest guys in the locker room too. So, or two of the toughest guys in the locker room. So it was, but yeah, man, it got hairy a lot of times. But you know what? That just means it was working. I specifically remember the night we broke Beulah's neck in New Orleans, and I thought we were going to get killed leaving the building. I thought we were dead. It was so outrageous, but that was old school, man. That you just don't see that today.
Sure, yeah.
So,
yeah.
And I actually think ECW was kind of the last territory that did that kind of stuff, that really pushed the envelope. And because of that, man, it was awesome. It was amazing to be part of. It was definitely scary. but we accomplished what we were going for.
Sure. And do you still keep up with any the Dudleys today? Bubba, Devon, Spike, or Joel, or anybody?
I just saw Bubba. We had dinner a month ago. He was in Las Vegas, where I live. I think he was here for Ring of Honor, so I saw him, and I saw Devon, who is now a producer with WWE, which I'm sure you guys know. He was here for Monday Night Raw. I guess it might have been 2 months ago now. So I brought my 8-year-old daughter to backstage. One, I wanted to see him because I hadn't seen him in a while, and two, she has now stumbled across pro wrestling, and she got to meet some of the people she really likes too. So I do keep in touch with those two. Joel and I absolutely do as well. Not so much anybody else though from the Dudley clan, and not for any other reason. We just don't hear from each other. But there's no issues or anything. So
sure,
all good.
Yeah. Now, what were your thoughts about them two returning to WWE last year for a little bit of a run? I mean, does it surprise you that after all this time they kind of came back full circle back to the WWE? And just, I don't know, returned as the Dudley Boys, because I know they were down in TNA and doing their little stint of Bully Ray and all that, but what was it like to see the Dudleys on TV, I mean, one last time?
I thought it was awesome. I really do. Those guys have had an amazing history, and I think, and look, I started watching some of that stuff again because, or some of Monday Night Raw, that is, because of them. And seeing them back in the ring and seeing them work with the new tag teams there, I think really was good. I think it helped everybody, and it probably served the purpose that they were there for, which was to help others, which at this point in their career, I know they're really big into that. So I think it was awesome.
Great. Now after the Sign Guy ran its course, we saw you turn into Louis Dangerously. What initiated this, and did you like doing this better than Sign Guy?
What initiated it was I legitimately would wear my hair in a ponytail backstage sometimes, and people would come up to me if they didn't see my face and they just saw me from behind, and they would call me Paul because we looked so much alike. Like, it legitimately happened. I remember it was Axel Rotten and Johnny Grunge, who we've lost, but those were some of my funny memories of those two guys. They used to come up to me and they would think it was Paul, and they turned me around and be like, Jesus, it's not Paul. So it started there as kind of a joke. And then, like, when I knew the Dudleys were going to WWE and I wasn't, which was fine, and I was staying in ECW, I actually was staying there, and I was starting to learn more of the business side of it. So what I mean by the business side of it was being a promoter and doing all these other things, booking the buildings, selling tickets, which is my career now. So, I mean, it was like I was learning a different side of the business. And then Tommy and I always would kid around about Louis Dangerously. And one night, Louis Dangerously had an in-ring tryout, to actually see if it would work. And it was only the second time I'd ever done a promo on a mic, and it was at the ECW Arena, which is the hardest place to get over. It was at the top of the show with Joey Styles, so it was super high pressure. It literally was positioned to me as an in-ring tryout. So if it didn't work, no problem. You still had a job backstage, but on screen was done. But it worked, and it worked really. It was really fun. I would have liked. There was a lot of stuff we did that never made TV and stuff like that, but there was a lot of really good stuff that did. But we had a lot of fun with it, man. It was a total ride, making fun of Paul, but also, I mean, I looked up to Paul a lot too. So especially when I was learning the business side. So it was interesting, to say the least. But I didn't like, at the end of the day, I think Sign Guy Dudley is absolutely what's more remembered because of the history of the Dudleys. And honestly, they both served an equal amount of purpose to me when I look back on it. So there was none that I liked doing better or anything like that. They both had a purpose for what they were needed for.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned before, like, how ECW is like the Nirvana, if you will. ECW was definitely a special time for fans. It felt like it was going to a rock concert than it did to see just a normal wrestling show. What do you feel maybe was like that magic ingredient in all that to make all these elements, either from the fans, the superstars, just something different that, for everyone to enjoy? I mean, it was totally... I can't express this. No, you know what I mean? It was
I do, and it's very hard to put into words. But what it was obviously very passionate fans, and unlike anything you'd ever seen in pro wrestling. And honestly, I don't think we've ever seen it since. At the same time, it was a very, very passionate and hardworking crew of men and women that wanted to lay it all on the line every night, whether if there was a camera there or not, whether if there was 50 people in the crowd or 3,000 or 4,000 people in the crowd or whatever. You combine all those things, and it made for an amazing product. I mean, if you had ever been to a Nirvana concert, it's the same type of thing. They just go out, they'd kick everyone's ass, and everyone wanted their ass kicked, and that's what we did.
That's couldn't say it better. Now, do you still keep up with the business at all today? To where, I mean, with the 10+ hours a week of wrestling there is from every station and whatnot, do you watch any of it at all now?
Yeah, I don't watch it as much as I once did. I watch it a lot now, really, because my daughter is so into the women of WWE, which I think is amazing. I think those girls have done amazing things in pro wrestling, and I have no issue at all with my daughter watching that because they're saying a good message. They're also really good people. I mean, which I think helps a lot too. But to me, that part is really interesting. They've taken the whole TNA thing and thrown that away and just go out with athletes. And I can't say enough good things about them, but that's who I want my daughter to see too. So my engagement with it is kind of limited on that basis. Honestly, being at the show a couple months ago when I was telling you about when we saw Devon and everything like that, it was kind of strange. You know what I mean? It's weird to step back in that world even for like a little bit. But look, I know the business is due for some changes and due for some, I don't want to call a revolution because that's a played out term, but it's something more than what it is right now. And that's not a knock against WWE. WWE is doing exactly what they should. They're making a lot of money. They're continuing to gain more and more exposure in different ways. And their model is proven successful. I just think there's other things that can happen in pro wrestling around that.
Yeah, not to be cliche with this question, but did you ever wish you did anything different with your time in the business? I mean, is there anything after your time was done? Was it always like, oh, I wish I really tried this out, or I don't know?
Yeah, you know what? It's two things. One, I wish I'd listened more, and then when I say that, I wish I had listened to, like I said earlier, when we were in the moment in 1998 or 1997, when ECW was at its prime. And even before that a little bit too, it's like none of us knew that 20 years later it would still be a thing. Like the fact that I'm doing this interview with you still blows my mind, but I get it. And I wish I had listened to the advice that was being handed out in those moments about the business in general. Because I didn't. I listened as much as I could, but I wish I had paid a little bit more attention or been a little bit more of a student of the game. Like, a good example is like what Gabe is doing or what Tommy Dreamer did at the time where these guys were doing their thing, but they learned every facet of it. I learned how to be a promoter. That helped me in my career afterwards, which was huge. And the second piece was I wish I had actually enjoyed the time a little bit more. It was super stressful because, I, for the first few years, was not trained. I was getting trained on the spot. I was also given a spot, which people would kill for. So I had to keep that spot, and I did whatever I could to do that, which was work really hard. Which also obviously, you appreciate moments that you're in, but sometimes I wish I appreciated them a little bit more.
Are you into the social media universe, or where can fans keep up with you today?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is at L D'Angeli, which is LDANGELI, and Instagram is Lou_D as in dog ANGELI. Both of those are perfect.
Perfect. Well, Lou, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll speak with you down the road.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.